So what we're going to do next is we are going to mark the quarter points on the shirt and the quarter points on the neckband. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to slide this down so you can see it a little bit easier. I've got the shirt laying with the wrong side out still. We're going to be pinning the neckband later to the right side of the shirt. So what I've done here, here's the back neckline, here's the front. I'm going to try to lay them so they match up. And then I'm going to pull the sleeves out just a bit so that they're laying flat. And what we're going to do is we're going to mark first the back center of the shirt. The back center is going to be where we are going to start sewing later when we actually attach the neckband. So I'm going to put a pin right here to mark the back center. Directly across from that, I'm going to mark the front center. And then right here and here on both of the sleeves, I'm going to mark the other quarter points. Okay, so quarter points just means you have 4 points marked on your pattern. Sometimes when you are sewing and you're cutting out your pattern pieces, they will actually give you notches around the neckline and notches on your neckband to show you exactly where to line them up. This particular pattern did not do that, so we have to go in and find those 4 quarter points. So again, just to repeat, you're going to match up around the neckline. You're going to mark the back and the front center, and then the 2 opposite ends of the sleeves. So you have 4 points that you're marking. I decided to use the red Cardinals fabric for my neckband. But what you will do is you will take that strip of fabric that you had, and you had it labeled for your neckband on the wrong side. What you're going to do is you're going to take these short ends and you're going to bring them together with right sides together. So I'm going to bring them together with the short ends, and I've still got that wrong side out tape that's labeling it on the outside. All that we're going to do for this step is match up that short end, and then you're going to stitch across. Okay, so from one end to the next, and this needs to be a 1/2 inch seam allowance because that's a seam allowance you've been using for the entire project. Now I've already done that. I've already stitched a 1/2 inch, and so what I now have is a serged end because I just used the serger to do my 1/2 inch seam allowance. So then what you do next is you take that band and you fold it in half this way. Okay, so you're just folding it in half so that now I have right sides out, wrong sides touching, and we're just folding it in half all the way around until eventually it looks somewhat like this. All right, so what I have here is I have my center seam right here. That is going to be the very back of my shirt, and so I'm just going to lay that down so that it's in the middle, and I'm just finger pressing this. So again, I've already folded it in half. I'm going to finger press it, and now I'm going to lay my pressing cloth down so I can press a good crease in there on each end. So at school, if we don't have steam in the iron, you can just take a spray bottle, squirt, and use the steam from that. It just adds a better finish if you're able to use a little steam with it. Okay, so I'm going to lift that up. And what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to look for that band back here, and I'm going to mark directly across from it. So that's the front center. And then I'm going to find my 2 creases that I just put in on the sides, and I'm going to put another pin at each one of those. So a pin over here and a pin over here. And so now when I go to pin my shirt collar to the shirt neckband, or to the neck area, I'm going to have these 4 spots to look for. The center seam back here and these 3 pins, and then the 4 pins that are on the shirt. All right, so what we're going to do for this part, I'm going to first line up the crease right here. So this is the crease on my neckband with the back center of the shirt. So I'm pinning it so that the open edge of the neckband that I'm putting in runs even with the right side. So I'm pinning it to the right side, or what is now the inside of the shirt. lining it up with that first pin that I had put in on this center back. So I've pinned right here. The next thing that I need to do is I need to pin my next spot. So I've got a pin right down here, and I can also see this crease. I'm going to pin that creased area to the second pin that's right over here on the shoulder. So I just make sure again that I'm pinning along the raw edge side, and I'm pinning it to the right side of the shirt, which is now on the inside because I have the shirt with the wrong side out. Next, I'm going to pin this front area. So I've got a pin right here marking the front center, a pin marking the front center of the collar or the neckband, and now I'm going to put that pin in here to hold it. Okay, and then lastly, I find this area right over here. It's got a crease, and I'm going to line that up with the pin on this side. Again, I'm pinning to the inside, which is the right side of the fabric. Okay, so at this point, what you should have is just 4 pins in holding those 4 quarter points. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I'm going to just hold this. Hopefully you can see it. What you have to do is between the 2 sets of pins, you have to stretch out the band, but you want to stretch it evenly and put more pins in. So this area between my thumbs, I'm stretching out the neckband, and I'm going to pin in between those 2 places. So I'm going to pull really tight right here and put a pin where my thumb is. Then I'm going to pull tight again, and I want to pull this up high so that it's even and straight across the top. Put another pin in. And at every spot, you want to add pins. This is one of those steps where it may seem like you're going overboard with pins, but the more you stretch and get it laying flat and the more pins you use along the way, then the easier it will be to ensure having a straight neckband that doesn't get all bunchy. Okay, and you don't want any bunches or wrinkled areas. So I'm going to put one more pin in here. So then I'm going to gather the next area. So I'm going to take this pin, and this is the area that I'm working on. I'm going to pull that tight, and I'm going to just start putting pins in. Okay, so you'll repeat that step between every set of pins. Find the center, pull that neckband, add a pin. Then find the next area, pull that. So I'm going to pin in this area, and then I'll pin in this area next. So you'll just keep doing that all the way around till your neckband is pinned in. So because we have pins, and I am not going to have my students in class take pins to the serger, we're going to machine stitch the neckband in place before we serge it. And in order to make sure that your neckband continues to stretch, you need to select a stretch stitch. We're going to select number 4 on the stitch selector, so you're going to turn that to a 4, and then you can increase your stitch length to about a 3.5. That 4 looks like a lightning bolt, and it allows the neckband to continue to stretch. If we stitched the neckband in place with a regular straight stitch, then when you go to stretch out the neckband, the threads are all going to pop. They're going to break on you because that straight stitch does not allow for any stretching. On your machine, number 3 is also a stretch stitch. So sometimes if I want to reinforce like a seam of a pair of leggings that goes around the rear, I might reinforce it with this triple stretch stitch. Again, number 4 is a stretch stitch. Number 5 can be a stretch stitch. And then a lot of these that are like your different cover stitches, those can also be stretchy. But you just do not want to sew any of the things that are going to be stretching horizontally. So that would be your neckband and your lower hem and your cuffs. You don't want to do any of those with a regular straight stitch. All right, so I've already moved my stitch selector to a 3.5 stitch length. You do not need to back stitch with that lightning stitch. In fact, it won't even really let you. I am going to use the edge of my presser foot as my seam allowance. Lower my needle, lower my presser foot. I'm starting at the back center, and that's where you'll want to start also. Remember, your back center is where you have the seam from the neckband that you've sewn. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull out a series of pins, maybe 2 or 3 of them. You're going to pull the fabric so that it's laying really flat, and then you will just put your foot on your foot pedal and you're going to stitch forward that area. Okay, so it's this little lightning bolt back and forth. You want to make sure that you are not sewing through anything other than the 2 layers, the folded over layers of the neckband, and 1 layer of the top of the shirt, so that none of your shirt gets caught in there. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to pull out my next 2 pins, and then I'm going to pull that set tight. I'm going to make sure that's lining up straight. Okay, and then again I'm just going to stitch until I get close to the next set of pins. So I'm going to repeat that all the way around the entire neckband, removing pins, pulling tight, getting it to lay flat, stitching until I get all the way back to the beginning where I started. All right, I'm coming around to the very end of the shirt, and I have a little tiny bubble. So what I'm going to try to do is just not have that. I don't want to have any kind of puckering. So I'm really just pulling that neckband tightly. And I'm just going to try to work out any lumps or bumps I see along the way. And if I do have any bumps, I'd love it to be right there in the middle on the back center, which I am trying to avoid it, but it looks like I'm gonna have a tiny little wrinkle. Okay, so as you can see, even I struggled a little bit with that last little bit. My neckband piece is not as stretchy as my back, so that's probably what part of my problem was. So hopefully after we press this and serge it, everything will turn out just fine. All right, so next we're going to go over to the iron and we're going to press around the neckband. At this point, you should have all the pins taken out. What we want to do is we want to tuck that seam underneath. And here's where I had my issues. Now, this is the back neck. I'm not happy about it. I wish I didn't do that, but I did. So if it were really, really bad, if this were on the front, I would probably rip the whole neckband off. But because it's on the back, it'll be somewhat hidden. But pressing also helps. We're going to go over, really press around the neckband really nice and get the get the seam underneath. So I'm going to try to get it to lay flat underneath there. And we'll just press this the whole way around. So once you've pressed it, you can get a pretty good idea of how your neckband is going to look. And despite that little bump back here, I am actually pretty happy with how this one turned out. So I am going to go ahead and go around it with the serger next. I'm serging at home, so it's going to look slightly different than at school. However, you're going to follow the same guidelines that you have been previously with lining up your stitch that you've put in up with the line on the presser foot. You do want to make sure when you finish that you leave a long tail on your neckband, and so you can loop that serger tail back through some previous stitches. Okay, so we are now done for the most part with the attachment of the neckband.